Good evening and welcome back to Be Rich. My good friend and nephew Shashwat Swaminathan is here today and we wanted to discuss Microsoft. Microsoft is an eternal growth stock. They are now going to acquire Activation Blizzard, one of the big gaming companies in the world. I know very little about it, but they are acquiring it for all cash. I think they are not giving any stocks out. And Warren Buffett is seeing a difference between the valuation of Activation Blizzard today and what is the price at which Microsoft is going to buy it. And therefore, he has already acquired 10% of Activation Blizzard, waiting to give it to Microsoft, provided it goes through the competition commission in the US, clears the deal and it goes through. Warren will make a good profit. But that is a factoid which is not relevant to this conversation. Today, he is going to do a deep dive in Microsoft, take a look at its metrics, and see how it grows. What do you, Shashwat?
Okay, so Microsoft as the company we know it is on your operating system. We use Microsoft in your Word, your Excel. We use it in terms of PowerPoint as well. So Microsoft is something we all use constantly. And so if we look at its numbers, its an EV by EBIT is 27.1x in the sense that its enterprise value over its earnings at its current price is at 27.1x, and its free cash flow is at 3.5%, and its current PE ratio is at 26.45% at the price it is while we're talking about this, and its EPS is at around 9.58. So while we track the history of Microsoft started off as Bill Gates writing or rather purchasing DOS and selling it to IBM for $50,000 and in the 80s, and it's progressed a lot from there. IBM is not as big as Microsoft is today, and Bill Gates has transformed Microsoft from just a bootleg software for operating DOS to a completely self-sufficient operating system. And Microsoft went through a slump after the internet crash, the dot-com bubble, which was in the 90s, where Microsoft had a peak valuation of 75, and then it had a lost decade in the sense that 20 years after its crash from the dot-com bubble, only in 2005 were they able to acquire this or get to the same price in the stock market as the 90s, 92, or whenever the dot-com bubble peak
The
was.
dot-com bubble was 2000, around 2000. It took them
Right.
5 years.
Right. And plus, after 2005 till 2011, they had a slump in their growth and their sales, and they were trading at discount valuations. In 2011, they were trading at 20 PE for a tech company, which is quite remarkable. So if someone had bought Microsoft during its IPO, and to the current date, the CAGR is around 26.53%. In the sense that if you had put $10,000 into its IPO in Microsoft, you'd stand to gain $25 million today.
This is including dividends or excluding dividends?
Including dividends.
Okay.
So $10,000 would have become 25 million, but this might sound like a cherry picked number. Let's look at 2011, where we all knew that Microsoft was trading at a discount, in the sense that papers were writing about it. There were articles in the Wall Street Journal about Microsoft being traded at a discount. So $10,000 put in Microsoft in 2011 would be around $143,000 today. So Microsoft has clearly been able to deliver good growth, and this is in terms of the nominal price, of course. But even if you look at the growth rate, Microsoft has been able to beat the S&P 500 by miles, in the sense that over the past 20 years, they've delivered around a 15% CAGR, which is greater than the S&P 500. And during the 2005 slump period, and the interesting thing about Microsoft is, even though their revenue and their growth has increased, their price didn't reflect that until quite recently. It became a $1 trillion company. Not the first, but one of the few companies to achieve $1 trillion market capitalization. So Microsoft is quite an interesting story, and that's why I brought it to you. And another reason why I feel like Microsoft, if I believe it's currently at fair valuation, but in case price slips, I think it might become a value buy. Because Microsoft, like all the companies you like, and like all the companies Uncle Warren Buffett likes, it buys back its own stock.
It buys back its own stock. So amount of stock reduces every year.
Exactly.
Okay, for the uninitiated, what Microsoft does is very simple. It has 3 major divisions, as I know. It has a suite of office products, and Windows. Windows is not a main thing. The suite of Office products is a main thing.
Yeah, that accounts for 32% of their revenue.
And what it does is, it releases before you have to buy it at a one-off time.
Yeah.
Now they have pay-per-use.
Yes.
So they have that software as a service model.
Yeah.
This is the pivot that Satya Nadella made.
Yeah.
And it paid off big time.
Yeah.
So that Occupy gets them 32 to 35% of their revenue.
Yes.
They have a huge gaming division.
That accounts for 32%. Again, 32%.
That again accounts for 32%. Xbox is very popular in that.
Including their Microsoft Office royalties. I mean, in the sense, Microsoft operating system royalties. That is coupled with.
Yeah. So MS Office royalties and Xbox gives you 33%.
Yeah.
And they have a huge cloud operation. I
just want to add one more point to your point on Xbox. They're at the cutting edge of gaming. I mean, I like playing video games, being my age. And they've come up with a concept known as the Game Pass, where you don't have to buy individual games anymore. You just pay for a service and you can pay a particular amount. You can select any game from their library and play it.
That's it. They made it as a service.
Exactly.
And the third arm is Azure, their cloud division.
That's also 33%.
33%. So these three divisions are equally divided.
Yeah.
They made an entry into, they bought a hugely expensive buy, which many panned at that time. They bought LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And Ralph Heifelman, the founder of LinkedIn, is on their board. And now they have made a pitch for Activation Blizzard.
Yeah.
So they do have a huge social media presence in LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional contact service, and I don't use LinkedIn much, but in LinkedIn, what little I have seen is there are a lot of professionals, and it's a recruitment business. There's a paid service in that also, and so it has emerged from being a pure software company into a software as a service company, gaming as a service company, and they have now into a HR as a recruitment company. And they have a huge cloud division. Amazon and Azure slug it out for the cloud market.
Yeah. Google is trying to get a chunk.
Yeah, so Google is the third player, but Google is a poor third player in this.
Yeah.
Now, this is the main three divisions of Microsoft, and all three will grow because one of the first things that Satyan did is bury the hatchet with Apple and made the software as a service available for Apple suite also.
Yeah.
So the Apple ecosystem also has an Excel and other software.
Yes.
And he settled the suits, I think, the lawsuits.
The interesting thing about that, though, is that although he's taken a neutral stance on Apple, Apple came up with its Apple game. The Xbox Pass was modeled by Apple with its Apple gaming service. And Microsoft gave them chase by creating their own Game Pass.
Yes. So actually, Microsoft's biggest problem and reason for stagnation was they missed the mobile revolution completely.
Yeah.
They didn't get a handle on mobile. Google ate them for breakfast there.
They tried to do something with Nokia Lumia.
Yeah, it just fell flat.
Yeah.
The difference is Microsoft bundled Windows and charged for every operating system, whereas Google gave away Android free.
Yeah.
So that's where they killed Microsoft.
They gave production to China and said, you guys can manufacture your own phone, we'll give you the software.
They gave the software for free.
Yeah.
And they took in a lot of advertisement revenue.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately Microsoft didn't. So they called it the freemium service.
Premium, yeah.
And it really destroyed Windows.
Yes.
And officially, though my generation used Internet Explorer, last week they pulled the plug on the Internet Explorer.
Microsoft. It's called Microsoft Edge now.
Yeah. So, and their Bing service, their search engine, which competed with Google.
Yeah.
I have never used it. They tied up with Yahoo and tried everything. It also flopped.
Yeah.
So these were the hits and misses. They missed the search revolution. They missed the
mobile revolution.
And then they pivoted to software as a service. They had cloud and gaming.
Yeah.
And in gaming, their main competition is Sony. And by buying Activation Blizzard, they have got a major leg up on Sony.
Yeah. And the idea with Microsoft is they're following a model where they're producing in-house games.
Yeah.
Stuff which they have a monopoly over, where it'll force people to buy the Xbox Game Pass. And what they've done is they're trying to integrate it where you can use a Game Pass on any device. You don't have to have an Xbox for it. They're not making the same mistake with their Office suite, where you have to have a Microsoft operating system. They're saying you can use your Xbox, this thing, Game Pass, anywhere in your PC or your console.
So they are at least present in all the growth sectors,
Yes.
and the growth is going to be unlimited for them, and they are not limited to one geography.
And I have a few more figures to run through you. So we talked about Azure and SQL, which they are pioneering in, and their cloud division grew by 26%. That's their highest growing component out of the three components which I had mentioned. And Azure personally has grown by 50% in the past year. So that's an insane amount for one division to grow at, in the sense that they've clearly broken into the growth sector of their business, in the sense that Azure has grown at 50%. And another important aspect which we should focus on is whether Microsoft can still produce these returns in the future. And I think they can, because the return on invested capital is extremely high. The return on invested capital, their ROIC is at 22%, and their weighted average cost of capital is at 8.1. 8.1, which is the same, this thing, weighted average, or around the same we had discussed for PayPal. Whereas PayPal had only an ROIC of about 14%, if I'm not wrong.
So they borrow capital.
Yes, but their weighted average cost of capital also comes from their equity. The yield which they pay on their equity is also factored into the weighted average cost of equity, basically. Their interest coverage is 40x.
Okay, so they make 40 times the money they pay as interest.
Yes.
So basically, what they are doing is they are shrinking capital and they're finding it cheaper to borrow money.
Yeah.
And that's what they are doing. And definitely, it's going to be one of the most successful software companies. They have made a transition where Paul Allen is dead and gone.
Yeah.
Steve Ballmer, who drove at the sales in Microsoft to where it is today, has left.
Yeah.
Bill Gates also has left Microsoft, except a very minor role.
Minor stake. Yeah.
Minor stake. He has 5%.
5%. And he's reducing it.
He's reducing it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, Microsoft has become an independent company. It's moved away from the Gates, Allen, and Steve Ballmer era, and it's no more a Bill Gates company. It has matured into a company. As I expect, as the Nasdaq falls, as the value corrects, it will indeed become a very valuable company.
Okay.
But I think we should wait for some correction in price before we get into it.
Finally, I want to end by asking you to give us a brief about Steve Ballmer and because there's a misconception that Satya Nadella is the core reason to why Microsoft is standing where it is today.
No. Satyan did the pivot, but the company, Windows and Office to becoming the dominant product.
Yeah.
There were several other products. There was Lotus 123. There was one more software.
Yeah.
And all these softwares which were competing with Microsoft, Office suite was destroyed by Steve Ballmer using his skills.
Yeah.
And he also chased piracy across the world. As far as computing goes, that is desktop computing goes, and laptop goes, he made Windows the default system.
True.
Where he missed out and he drove sales insane. But where he made the mistake was the pivot that was required to mobile devices. It was too little, too late. And that's where the Gates and Steve Ballmer era end. The framework for whatever Satyan did was already present. Office was already present. He just copied Salesforce and made it as suite as service. SQL was already there.
Yeah.
They were already very strong in data and storage. The natural extension was cloud. Xbox was already there in the Gates and Ballmer era.
Yeah.
It was already a top contender with Sony.
Yes.
The innovation was Game Pass.
Yeah.
So Satyan built on what was already there.
Yeah.
If people follow the game of cricket, it's like batting. You come to bat when the score is huge, 200 for 2, and you're slowed down, and you need to just hit the balls to go up the revenue, which he did brilliantly. The pivot was extraordinary.
Right.
And I use the cricketing metaphor because Satyan himself is a great cricket fan.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the story.
So I want to end this by saying that to finally sum up what we think about the stock, you had said that we should wait for the stock to correct.
Yes, I would wait for all American stocks to correct.
Including this one.
Including this one.
And That's not to say that it's overvalued now. It's at fair value, but it'll become a value at that point it corrects.
Yes,
And we thank you for watching Be Rich, and that's about it.
that's about it. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching Be Rich. If you like the content, kindly consider sharing with your friends and relatives. You press the subscribe button of my channel and turn on the bell notification. If you do not turn on the bell notification, you will not be notified every time we put out a video. Once again, I thank you for your support to Be Rich. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.